On this episode of Star Trek Universe, the Star Trek Universe officially becomes a multiverse of madness as we review Star Trek Lower Decks 509, Fissure Quest, and the series finale 510, The New Next Generation, after these few words from a terrified Lieutenant Junior Grade O'Connor, freshly back from his extra-universal koala adventures.
This holiday, BMW has reunited three members of the family at the BMW Road Home Sales event. The Agile X3, engineered for any adventure. The plug-in hybrid X5, commanding the streets with unmatched presence. And the all-electric i4, charging into the future with impeccable performance. Hurry in to find what powers your journey at the BMW Road Home Sales event. BMW, the ultimate driving machine.
Visit Valley BMW Center today for attractive lease and finance offers.
Hey guys, it is Ryan. I'm not sure if you know this about me, but I'm a bit of a fun fanatic when I can. I like to work, but I like fun too. And now I can tell you about my favorite place to have fun. Chumba Casino. They have hundreds of social casino style games to choose from with new games released each week. You can play for free and each day brings a new chance to collect daily bonuses. So join me in the fun. Sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com.
Sponsored by Chumba Casino. No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
Welcome to Star Trek Universe, the podcast where you get to listen in on two lifelong friends sit and talk about Star Trek. My name's Matthew Carroll.
I am David C. Robertson.
How you doing, buddy?
I'm all right, man. I got to see Ben Folds last night, so that was cool.
Oh, yeah, you told me you were going. How was it?
It was... he was great.
Mm-hmm.
The venue kind of sucked.
Oh, why is
whoever was in charge of the lighting just kind of kept going willy-nilly with some of the lights, and just it felt like ice picks going into my eyes. They were just without warning, would just start being woo, and moving the lights around the audience, and it's just God, it just and it was a 2-hour drive up, so my back and hips kind of sucked, and the seating kind of sucked. So
yeah, that's always tough.
That kind of thing. But he was great.
That's awesome. Yeah, you were telling me it was one of those airplane request tours, right?
Yeah.
Which, if you don't know, I'm a big Ben Folds fan, me and Dave both, and he does these tours where he has the audience write down requests on a paper airplane, and then people throw the paper airplanes at the stage, and then he picks from the floor and just does his entire set based on whatever people throw. That was a lot of fun. And were there any that were not his songs?
I wanted to request Just Like Heaven by The Cure. But they did specify that it had to be a Ben Folds song.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
So I didn't even bother because I was I'm good with him playing whatever. I don't care.
Yeah. I went to one years ago, and he had a few just random covers that people threw up there. And I don't know. When people request covers, I know that obviously you wanted to request a cover and you know a lot of his songs, but I was just we're at a Ben Folds concert, people. Request the Ben Folds songs. But they did. It was funny because he made a fun deal out of it. But that's cool. Anything that was a deep cut that you were excited that he played?
There was no deep cut that I was excited that he played necessarily. The most fun I think I had was he picked up an airplane and it was blank. He just got up and started singing a song about how there's one at every show, and some asshole who asked his friend who doesn't know who Ben Folds is to come to a show, and they threw an airplane and they didn't write a song because they didn't know any Ben Folds songs.
They're pretending to be involved. Yeah, that's really funny.
And he just had a whole song about that. It was a lot of fun.
That's awesome.
That was funny.
That's super fun. All right, well, let's get into talking about these two Lower Decks episodes because, the end of Lower Decks, man, the end of an era.
Yeah.
But it feels also like they're definitely
setting up stuff,
setting up just future adventures for sure. More than any other show, more than any other Star Trek show, this show's is I feel the least finality to it in the finale. I don't feel even. They all get something changes for everyone, but they don't I don't feel they're in any kind of resolution to the storyline. It's just sort of like they're still on the ship doing their thing. The only difference is they're all in different positions, and Freeman left to go to this. But the big thing is Starbase 80 and the Rift being right there. Like, what does that mean for the future of Star Trek? Like, that's a whole thing. So anyway, sorry, I'm jumping ahead, but
yeah, you are. There's something about it that I really like, and it's something that comic book writers talk about a lot. When you're, dabbling in someone else's universe, when you're playing with someone else's toys, you have to be cognizant of the fact that people are coming after you.
Yeah.
So, it's good stewardship to, tell your story, but also leave a little something behind for them.
Absolutely.
And, I think they did it with this stable wormhole to other parallel realities. And Starbase 80 there, I think what they do with that is the way they did it was just really masterful, because it doesn't make me feel like there's a huge dangling thread. I don't feel like I'm like missing something, but like I'm like somebody could pick that shit up and go anywhere with it, and that would be really fun.
Literally,
but they don't have to.
It's the the last two episodes, both the multiverse hopping and the Schrodinger's wave or whatever, like they both allowed this show to just do a bunch of random fun stuff in the last episode and be really random with it. And they set up basically like one of those devices in the middle of the Star Trek universe. There's just like now a permanent fixture, and I like, it reminded me of the setup a lot of DS9. They could totally do a Starbase 80 show where they're just dealing with whatever's coming through the rift and dealing with whatever politics of multiple universes and stuff. Sounds like a lot of fun, man.
Yeah, I would love to see it, and if they never get around to it, I get that too.
Yeah, I'm sure it'll be an extended universe stuff. If nothing else, there will be books.
Sure. Well, I mean, the beautiful thing about it is they really can just, and they can just go into extended universe stuff and it never mean anything necessarily, because it's all multiverse.
Right.
And a lot of, when you going back to 509 with Fissure Quest, we get some of that extended universe stuff where it's like we meet an alternate T'Pol who lived with Trip for 63 years. He didn't die in the finale of Enterprise in that universe.
I was wondering if that might be a nod to, because, okay, Boimler is Section 31. He got sent on this mission.
Right.
So, and also in the books, there's a book, right, where in Section 31 where Trip didn't actually die. He was picked up by Section 31. So I wondered, and if that version of Trip was married to T'Pol for a long time, would it be possible that this is just like an extension of that story? Like maybe this could have happened in our reality,
They're definitely referring to the books a little bit and just making reference, but the reason it can't be like, prime timeline is because she says very plainly that her universe didn't have a Boimler.
Oh no, I'm not saying
prime. So
I'm not saying it's not our universe. I'm saying it's
okay,
she's definitely from a different universe. But I'm saying like that story, the fact that she was married for decades, could have happened in our universe without us knowing it.
Yeah, could have.
And I thought that was really fun. I loved that. I loved T'Pol coming back. I thought it was interesting that they had Garrick and Bashir as lovers, but an EMH of Bashir, which I thought was a little like, I don't know. I like that's such an online joke about, not even a joke, but just there's that sort of that sort of relationship that is often teased and talked about of those two, that they're actually flirting and all those conversations, And so like I liked that they just acknowledged it and had it be a thing, but also making it Bashir's EMH made it a little weird. Like it was like, it's not actually Bashir, don't worry. like, come on, just make it Bashir.
Yeah, I didn't get that sense. I just thought it was a fun extra multiverse layer, because not only this is a universe where Garrick stopped being a spy and decided, instead of being a tailor, I'm going to become a doctor.
Yeah.
And they were from two separate universes too. So the Bashir LMH or whatever is from the reality where they decided to go ahead and make the EMH or whatever Mark II after him. Because remember in DS9 they were going to, but then they pulled back once they found out about his genetic augmentations.
That's right. Yeah. Man, so many cool little things. I love that.
So I like the idea that it's not, I didn't get the feeling that it was like, oh, it's not really Bashir. I got the feeling that it was specifically like, no, they found each other across universes because he's an EMH and he's a spy turned doctor.
Oh yeah, by the way, I loved the line, and it's just so perfectly Garrick and perfectly Star Trek in a way that is, I don't know, more informed and less hacky. The like, damn it, I'm a doctor, not a whatever. Like he said, I'm a doctor, but not just. Like I just loved that so much. It's such a good line, and like it's so Garrick the way he says it, but it's also a clear reference to I'm a doctor, not a whatever. Oh, it's so good. So good.
That was so good. And I love that they came back. I love that both of them, that Robinson and Siddig came back and played their characters.
It was so great.
And it was very clear that they were having fun.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a thing that they'd wanted to do for a long time. And of course, Robinson said he would come back as Garrick if he didn't have to get in the makeup again. He found a way.
Well, I should have opened with this. We've been like already jumping into everything, but like I loved this episode. Maybe my favorite episode of the season, one of my favorite episodes of the series. Like I loved it so much. It touched so many different cool parts of Star Trek, and it all felt. It's fun how Lower Decks finds a way to make it all feel like the shows they're from, but also fitting into the vibe of this show. I mean, just being on a Defiant class vessel, like flying around, doing what they're doing, and like when he showed up and delivered that line where he's like, I'm a doctor, but not just, and like he had like attacked that guy, and it panned up to see who it was, and him just wearing that classic like DS9 uniform and being Garrick was just like so cool to see. I was like, yeah, like it just warmed my heart. I loved it, and the ending. I like. There's so many. I just love the ending so much. I love the big swing. It's making me teary eyed because I love the big swing so much of William Boimler being like, send it to my universe. I'll just let my people know. Like, I know there are people who can handle it there because I trust my friends. And, like, my trust crosses all the galactic barriers. Like, just so good. He's like, I know. Send it to that universe. And he's like, what are you talking about? He's like, I know, because Boimler's there. Because I'm there. Rutherford's there. You're there. Tendy's there. They've got this. No problem. And it's just like, I love it. I loved it so much.
Yeah. Yeah. How did you feel about Alfre Woodard showing back up as Lily Sloan?
Amazing, absolutely amazing. Just a perfect little like connection to, you know, Star Trek history, both in like real world 20 years ago or whatever for First Contact, but also like Zephram, Cochrane, and Lily, like the first explorers, and like what if that had diverged differently, and instead they're not exploring planets, they're exploring the multiverse. It's just a slightly different thing. And I kind of knew it was something to do with that as soon as I saw the ship, because the ship design was so similar. I was like, that is an old ship design. What is going on here? Yeah. And then he hits it and says, there's no shields. I was like, could that be like Zephram Cochrane stuff? And it's sure enough, man.
And I love
so cool.
I loved her speech where she's like, you know, we don't need to meet new species. We do this to better understand ourselves. It's fun to learn about aliens, but learning about humanity, that's something else. I've met humans who've built rings around the sun. I've met others whose ships are the size of continents. I'm learning about what humans can be, mapping our potential. So far, it's limitless. Like, I loved that.
Yep. Me too. And it is what inspires Boimler, because she talks about like what it's like to, and she says like, look at you, look at the trust that exists across galaxies, the relationship you and Mariner have, and how that is like that extends across worlds, you know, across universes. And that's what I think that's what inspires his later decision to do what he does. And I just think it's such a well-written, tight episode that draws from so much Star Trek, and like, actually, I feel like every character really gets an arc in just the one single episode. It's everything I want from Lower Decks, and it's just so well done.
But it's also that speech, especially because she's talking to Boimler, and is speaking to his issue, which was hilarious, but also something that a lot of people are feeling a lot of fatigue about, is like the multiverse thing.
Yeah.
Where he says, "I'm so sick of the fucking multiverse." Harry Kim, Lieutenant Kim, was like, "Why would someone want to destroy reality?" And Boimler says, "Because they're probably a hacky, evil version of someone we all know, a reverse Picard, or Borgified Kirk, or fuck it, I don't know, Human Worf." That's all the multiverse is, just lazy derivative remixes.
Yep.
And it's not. In fandom, you see on the internet all the time, we're steeped in the communities on the internet, and we are into comic book movies and Star Trek and all this shit, and people are tired of the multiverse, but it's because, partially because there is some lazy hacky derivative writing going on there.
100%, yeah.
But also, it's just like, there is something that's like really appealing to me and to like writers. Like, it's one of the things that like makes the whole all the arguments about like which version of these characters are the true version so moot. It's like, no, these things have been going since 60s, in some cases the 30s, like, and in some cases like Sherlock Holmes and shit way before that. Like, it's these the power of myth, the power of story, the power of these characters, to see them adapted and tweaked and changed and made relevant over and over and over again. That's just something. So there's something so beautiful about that.
100%.
And I absolutely love seeing different versions of these Star Trek characters. And I mean, I'm right there with them. I want to know what those guys did with their Tuvix.
Yeah.
Like,
yes. Right. What did you do with your Tuvix? No, I agree with you completely, and I loved that. I loved it from the very beginning. Boimler being like, "I freaking hate the multiverse," because I knew that that was calling out that feeling among the fans.
Yeah.
But to not only call it out, but like address it and say like, yeah, there's problems. It can be used in a cheap way. So can every writing conceit, But like, the multiverse has so much potential, and like crossing the multiverse and connecting characters across it that have these different lives, and it can really enhance a story if done well. And I loved that whole thing. It was so good.
Yeah. On this episode, I was scrolling around, and I saw they had like a sort of a talkback section on Reddit, and I found like a fun theory where people were talking about the reason that like the Kims kept getting sucked into the rifts is because they didn't deserve a promotion to begin with because they were so inept. and then someone pointed out, like, here, the only Kim that with 2 pips went insane.
Insane. maybe they know that like a Voyager Kim can't deal with the power.
yeah.
Go straight to his head.
And this line made me laugh so hard, I'm gonna have to call it out. Hopefully this person is listening to our show. It's doubtful, but Lumpy Alien on Reddit said Janeway could see the darkness in him.
That's so funny. Oh man,
dude, I laughed so hard. I had to make a note of that. It was just so funny to me. Like, yes, I like this idea.
Me too.
Like, Harry Kim is the Morty of the Star Trek universe.
Yeah, I thought of that exact thing. That he's the Morty. I loved the fact that most of the crew are Harry Kims. Just so weird. It also, I couldn't help but think of like, when you open a pack of cards that you're collecting, And there's always that one card that you feel like you get in every pack, and you're like, I already have this one. I already have this one. And you always like, oh, it's another Archangel or whatever. Like back when we used to collect those Marvel cards, and you were like, you're always like going for the one you're missing, and you end up picking up a pack, and you get the same one in every pack, and it's like really tired of getting that same card. It was so funny.
I do love the idea that Harry Kim is so inept.
I do too.
It is a disservice to Harry Kim, and I'm sorry to all the fans of Harry Kim who have been angry all these years that he never got promoted. But there's something really funny, especially looking back over the course of Voyager's show. It kind of tracks a little bit, like. Yeah, it kind of makes sense, and it's funny. It's funny that he's the only one inept enough to, like, in every universe, to get sucked into the fucking rift.
Yeah. It's very silly. Very, very silly. And it is funny, like, what does that mean? What does that mean for the universe if he's the one that's getting constantly sucked into the rifts? The only one we hadn't talked about is Curzon Dax, really, I feel like. What'd you think of finally seeing Curzon Dax in action?
It was fun. It was fine.
It was neat that they were friends, T'Pol and he. And it seemed like they were friends from before Curzon, if I'm not mistaken, because, she calls him something like old friend, and then he says like something about Dax has been around for a long time or something like that. And I got the sense, they didn't say it for sure, but I got the sense that they might have been friends over multiple lifetimes.
Maybe. I didn't think so. Like, I didn't catch that. What I thought was they had an animosity, and by the end of it, they were like, okay, you give as good as you get, and we both really secretly like each other. And then, like, what I thought was cool was, there's no one to give that symbiote to, so she just has to, like, hold all those 600 years in her brain.
Yeah.
She has to take on the Dax symbiote's Katra. That was really cool. And they didn't finish that. Like, that's a thread that's out there somewhere.
Yeah.
That T'Pol has Dax's Katra.
Yeah. I could hear Jadzia delivering some of the lines that Curzon was delivering. Oh, and yeah. It was just really nice. It was just, he's different, but he's the same. It's the classic Dax thing. I loved it. Yeah. So good. Yeah. It really is one of my favorite episodes of the show. Period. I really hated that we couldn't cast last week. I had the flu and I couldn't get in here to do another cast.
Yeah.
I was sad we couldn't cast about it sooner.
Yeah, that's all right. So I do want to point out this line. This is my remaining line that I thought was really funny. So these glow sticks are what you use to cross realities? Yeah, unobserved complex gluon cores. Well, you might want to observe a couple because they're fucked.
Yep, I loved it.
I screwed up the actual like presentation of that line, but it was so funny to me.
No,
anyway.
It's so good. Yeah, it really was. Well, you might want to observe a few of them. Hey, that brings us to our episode 10, and another thing I really liked. It feels very similar. Sorry.
Real quick, would you want to go to that before Stu's
feedback? I'll just throw this out before we get into that. And I really liked the introduction. I assume I don't think this has ever been mentioned on Star Trek, but it felt like a deliberate, like we're going to add this to the canon. The Corbopples that are responsible for internal gravity or whatever, or artificial gravity. He's like, half of all bopples are corped. It's just so stupid. And like, that feels like a very deliberate, like, we're going to make this a thing that is in Star Trek science forever. It is now official that Corbopples are responsible. It's so funny. It's so good.
It's no dumber, I guess, than the several different things that are like whatever Cochrans, Millicochrans, Technocochrans, and all the whatever Tetracochrans.
Yeah, for sure. I just thought it was very, very funny.
That did make me laugh, for sure.
The gluons reminded me of that, and I had to bring it up. But let's some feedback. What you got for that episode 9?
All right, so Stu sent us something. The title was Penultiverse. He says, hello, Fissure Quest. Looking back on it, I'm kind of surprised they didn't put a Badgie variant on the bridge for this one. I'm so glad they didn't.
We got a nice Badgie. Oh, no, that was episode 10. Sorry.
That was episode 10, yeah.
Yeah.
Stu says, man, even Lower Decks is doing the Section 31 are the good guys. Actually, just a little shady thing. Come to think of it, how does holographic Bashir feel about all of this? Well, we don't know that holographic Bashir had any knowledge of the Section 31 shit.
Yeah, I would assume he wouldn't, because even if it was made after real Bashir did, like, they wouldn't include his clandestine knowledge into the EMH.
Right, and holographic Bashir is still a Bashir, like a hologram created after a real life Bashir from an alternate universe who may have never had any direct dealings with Section 31.
Yeah.
I feel like Stu was like, I didn't want a real response to that.
No, yeah, exactly. We're taking his question way too seriously. And also, if they approached him to be in Section 31 after they discovered he was an augment, and the augment is the reason they discontinued him. So one would assume in his universe they never discovered him being an augment, so he probably never became part of Section 31.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Sure. I don't know. Stu says, so if they don't even know what a warp drive is in Lily's reality, how do they even meet their Vulcan crewmates? And how are Lily and T'Pol even alive, since the other variants we see in the episode sure do imply that the reality's dates all align, don't they? I wondered about that, but in my days, reading lots of different multiverse bullshit, there are stories out there, sci-fi stories where parallel realities, parallel worlds, like, move at different rates in time.
For sure.
So, like Neil Gaiman's 1602 is a good example. It's literally the year 1602, but all of the characters from Marvel are there in 1602. So is that kind of shit? You could go with that, or
you can also do something similar with the idea that their travel. Sometimes you can enter one reality and you enter it in the same physical location, but other times you don't. So maybe there's a possibility when they travel through certain fissures, they jump into space as well as reality. Also, it is possible that the humans are working on these, like, fissure drives or whatever, and that the Vulcans still came to Earth and made contact, but just like they wouldn't let them leave on their first 5-year mission or whatever till, like, Archer's time, and they were being all, like, cagey with the warp drive and making sure maybe they just never shared warp drive technology, but the Vulcans still stayed to make sure they weren't, like, being too irresponsible with their fissure drives.
Yeah. I mean, if I were the Vulcans and I'm floating around, and then if I'm thinking parallel realities are purely, theoretical, and then, as T'Pol said, an Enterprise, like, that shit ain't real, it's theoretical. And then, like, some, Neanderthal humans over here create a freaking fissure drive.
Yeah.
Okay, girl, well, let's see what you got.
Yeah.
You didn't create warp, but shit.
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting concept for a universe. Like these space traveling beings that know nothing about. I would read that, like, alternate history of the Vulcan human relations in that world. It sounds so cool.
Yeah, but also it's such a like, the idea of that is so out there. I feel like you could headcanon. I think that's what they intend us to do, is headcanon a certain amount of this, where we're like, look, maybe Lily from her reality, she's floating around, they're going to different realities, and then, in her adventures, in her travels, maybe do a little time travel. Like, you don't know.
I know we discussed it earlier. They're leaving Freeman responsible for the wormhole jumping between realities. They should have left Ransom, man. He could have been Sliders again. I just realized it. I was like,
that's fun.
Yeah, I almost made a Jerry O'Connell joke thinking about the alternate realities. Then I was like, wait, he's on this show.
Look, there was some interview with Jerry O'Connell, and he said he was bummed that he missed out on the crossover with Strange New Worlds.
Oh yeah.
But then he also insinuated that Paramount had plans for him.
Oh.
He was real cagey about it.
Yeah.
Didn't say much else.
Man, there's so much they could do. Like, we're sitting here talking, and like, you mentioned a good show leaves stuff for other people to come back and pick up, and I agree with you completely. I'm a big believer in that. But this show, like, not only, like, we're talking about this alternate reality of these Vulcans and humans, and I'm like, not only do I want to know where this goes next, but there are so many questions about, like, the internal logic of this episode that make me want to dig further and think about how it works and how it would have worked.
Yeah.
I love it.
But as far as them not aging, I mean, like, well, shit, you know? Like, they could have gotten some sort of cure for aging or some shit, Stu,
yeah, in their travels.
Yeah, I mean, whatever. He says, supposedly, Boimler learns the lesson that the multiverse isn't just rehashes of already done stories from all of this, but this is the second season in a row where the penultimate episode features a Voyager actor reprising an old role where they're now villainous and ultimately perish from their own hubris, and a mariner who's been separated from her ship is instrumental in saving the day.
Yeah.
I didn't remember all of that, but
I mean, yeah, I do remember that episode, but I think it's a bit of a stretch to say those like recycled things. It's just like, yeah, there's definitely there's a nice it's a nice pull. I think it's funny when we're kind of like you can tell me and you really like this episode because everything Stu's saying, you kind of pick at it and make fun of it. I just want to defend.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to think it's like Stu's always sending in really funny stuff. And today I'm just like, nope, I'm not giving it to you, Stu. This is a flawless episode.
Yeah. Well, you know, the thing about it is you know, I can get a little aggravated with the shows from time to time. But at the same time, about half of what Stu says usually, I feel like, you know, he might have missed his calling being a yoga instructor because he's stretching so hard.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there are times. I feel like that's a bit of a stretch. Sure, it happened in two different seasons. That the only real, like, strong connection there is it's two previous Voyager crew members. But, like, I don't know. It's just two fun things. Two really fun seasons.
Case in point, though, credits list merely Jolene as T'Pol's voice actress. Is she a pop star now? That's how she asked to be credited.
Who?
So that's what Jolene Laylock.
Oh, did she go by that in her, like, modeling work or something?
No.
Interesting.
No, she's retired from acting. She came back because she likes Star Trek, but she's a Star Trek fan. But she asked.
I love that everybody comes back to do this show. It's so much fun.
She just asked to just be listed as Jolene, and we don't know why. Mike McMahon doesn't know why. So I don't know.
Cool.
I'm like, oh no. Stu says, despite being funny in a lot of ways, this episode actually was pretty plot heavy in its way and was interesting because of it. I still wish that after waiting all this time since he was recruited to Section 31, that they could have been a bit braver with their depiction of this Boimler and more faithful to Section 31 in general. But they seemingly don't want to take him too far from our default. Next week is the finale, which, hang on, we aren't getting a Crisis Point 3? That's bullshit! That's their Treehouse of Horror / Interdimensional Cable / Paintball episode. Actually, only one of those kept up through all the seasons. They were abandoned. Interdimensional Cable and Paintball episodes were abandoned by Harmon. Stu says, while never stated, I inferred that we'd be getting one of those every other season. And if so, we were due. Boo. Yeah, you know what? It's your final season. Don't, find out. Yeah, don't waste an episode on that.
You only have so much time in the final season. They want to do things with the characters, and I think they did. I think the season was pretty good, but I do think it they nailed the very end. The rest of the season was kind of like par for course. They nailed the ending though. This is really the last 2 episodes were really solid.
Stu says, P.S. obligatory, no Rutherford plot gripe.
Yeah, we'll talk about that more, I guess, now when we talk about this episode 10. I will say, I think that was the weakest part of the end of the show, I feel like, is Rutherford's big change was losing the Oculus, choosing the Cerritos over the Oculus. And I don't feel like that was well explained. Like, I don't feel like it was well set up, I guess. It was something they teased in episode 9. His Oculus was having trouble connecting to the Cerritos, and then, like, he decided to tear it out to because he cared more about the Cerritos than the Oculus. But then I was like, it was never really clear, like, I thought maybe the Oculus was something he needed. I didn't realize it was a thing he could just pull off. Exactly. And that wasn't explained well. Like, the reason he hadn't chosen to do it, like, that's his big moment in this episode, is being like, I don't need this anymore. But in my opinion, his character has never been explained to me. Like, when Boimler broke the pad and was like, I don't need the pad as much as I care about my friend, that was set up this entire season. It was never set up to me in all 5 seasons of this show that he needed to, like, disconnect from the Oculus. You know what I mean? Like, that wasn't like a thing that I'd been, like, looking for him to do, or even, like, felt well motivated. So I guess I'm like jumping on Stu's train here, that, like, I think Rutherford was given a pretty weak storyline overall in general, but, like, this ending for his storyline was not well delivered, in my opinion.
I see what you guys are saying. I feel like for me to be able to really talk about it intelligently, I'm gonna have to go back and rewatch the entire series. And I say that because, like, I didn't until this episode realize that he really could just change it and just take it off.
Exactly. Like, that's my thing. Like, it'd be one thing if earlier in the series they were like, at any point having a conversation about, like, him being like, well, I choose to have this because it makes me feel useful, or I choose to have this because it makes me feel special, or I choose to have this, but, like, it's never been clear that it was a choice. So when he made the choice, it was like, wait, you can do that? And what does it mean? Like, it's never been a choice you were making that we knew about. It was just always a thing you had. And I always thought it had something to do with his accident. And he was like, it was helping. It was like some sort of medical device, basically, that also gave, kind of like Geordi, where, like, he has the visor so he can see, but also it gives him all these extra, like, abilities to see more of the color spectrum and stuff.
Yeah. And I'm wondering now if there weren't indications of that. Like, yes, he had his accident, some shady shit went down, but because of that trauma, he's been relying on the technology when he didn't necessarily have to. We know that going back to the first episode of this season, we saw what it looked like in the alternate reality for a Rutherford to lean more heavily into that once Tindy left. And, since that time, even though I don't feel like they've really fully done it over the course of the season, they have been really leaning into, the idea of, eschewing technology and trusting yourself over it. Because we had, Boimler running around with the pad. You had Rutherford seeing his other self becoming less and less human.
Yeah, but that was more about, like, I agree. Like, it was a thing about him, I guess, leaning. There was that I agree with you. That's a great pull. The idea that, like, he was, when he lost Tindy, he leaned into the Oculus so much that he lost himself in it. That's very true, and I think that's a really good point. But, like, there was never, like, a starting line where we were like, oh, there was no desire as an audience member. There was no desire for him to lose his Oculus, in my opinion. And that's I think, even if it's not something I should have even if it's not something I needed to know that I wanted, when it happened, like when he pulled it off, it like there was this triumphant music swell and stuff like, oh, well, now he's leveled up. He's moved past the Oculus. And I was like, was that a thing we needed him to do? Like, I don't know. I guess I just like don't think of that as a bad thing. Yeah, anyway.
Yeah, but, one of the things that I liked in this episode was, at the end where he was just like, whoa, I'm not used to the dopamine inhibitors or whatever not being there. And like, he's been basically self-medicating with this thing. And I think they maybe should have leaned into that a little harder throughout the rest of the series, or at least this season, that like, this isn't a thing he had to have the whole time. He could have just stopped, and he's been relying on it. Like,
yeah, for sure. And I think that all could have been a great storyline. And my whole point is they did not set that up.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah, it's
like I said, I want to go back and just see, like, was it something that I just didn't, were there little throwaway lines in there?
For sure, yeah.
That I just didn't notice. But, I mean, looking back at just the beginning of the season, I'm seeing a theme. We've got them going down to this planet and having to, like, grow their own crops and shit. That's kind of like a little bit of a, let's get away from technology to some degree. But, and then Tendi was, like, obsessed with her technology up in the attic and not helping to Lynn.
I see that. I think that's true, but that's also very strange for Star Trek. Like, they're on a spaceship. Like, that is not a...
Well, they from time to time, they do hit that little sci-fi trope.
For sure.
Yeah,
they do.
Like, that little sci-fi trope of being like, well, has technology gotten to the point where we're not relying on ourselves anymore?
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, I mean, I guess I'm like looking back after seeing this episode, I'm looking back on the season going, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. I'm with you.
Whatever.
Okay, so what? Let's just talk, I guess, more generally about episode 10. Did you feel like it was a good wrap up for the show?
Mostly, yeah, I do. Yeah.
Good.
I know that like Tawny Newsome said that they kind of kept coming back with more stuff. Like, originally that bar scene at the end wasn't there, and then like in her big speech. So like, it kept not feeling like the end and not feeling like the end until that speech and that last big thing, and she was like, "Oh, okay, that feels a lot more."
I really liked the speech, and I really liked. I really loved how she's like, "Wow, Mariner, you've really evolved. You've really changed. You've really grown." And she's like, "Well, I did set my bed on fire." Like, what? And he's like, "Yeah, it's gonna slip out in unexpected ways. Tune in." Whoa.
Yeah,
so funny. The delivery on that was so good.
Yeah, and I suspect. And we don't have confirmation on this. I suspect we'll have another Strange New Worlds crossover with them. I think we'll see them again.
Yeah, I hope so.
Post their series. Because she did in that interview say, like, we still need to see Tendi and Rutherford in live action.
Yeah.
So, it would make sense, especially with Ransom as captain now, if Jerry O'Connell showed up as Captain Ransom in Strange New Worlds, if they needed to get back there for some reason or another.
For sure. And his wife being the first officer over there, like, it seems like a good fit for, like there's a lot of connection there.
Mm-hmm.
But overall, I think the episode was fun. The Klingon plot was a little,
it was a little much.
It was a little much. It was kind of classic. Like, you're dealing with a big sci-fi problem, but you're also dealing with just like petty squabbling. I mean, even with the previous episode, you had the same thing. It's like big sci-fi problem. Oh no, Harry Kim's gone mad. Like so and this was kind of the same thing. It's like big Schrodinger field destroying the universe, but also the Klingons are just trying to like attack a Federation ship to start a war. Like it felt very Star Trek. I liked that part of it.
A good old renegade Klingon plot.
Yeah, always there in a pinch.
My favorite thing in this episode, and accompanied with my favorite line of the episode, when the Schrodinger field is like hitting the Klingon ships, and one of them just turns into an old barge, and you see all the bodies float away, and Ransom goes, "Oof," An ancient Klingon sailing barge. All lives lost.
Interesting. You thought that was a funny line?
I did. I laughed so hard.
Dude, that's really funny you thought that. I did not think they played that for humor at all. I thought,
that's
like,
so weird.
Completely, it did not feel humorous. It felt like that was Ransom. These are their allies, after all. These are the Klingons, but they're their allies. Yeah. And, like, they just, like, they're trying not to fight them. They give them the protection they need. Like, they're trying to help them. They're being Federation officers. And, like, in that moment when he says all lives lost, I thought it was, like, a really kind of touching moment. Because he's like, oh. And he's like, all lives lost. Like, it did not, there's no humor stank on it, dude, in my opinion.
It was so absurdist, like, I just howled. It was the funniest thing.
That's
I laughed again when I copied and pasted it into this document.
Funny, man. I did not think that was a funny line at all.
I still think it's funny. Like, just the visual of it turning into an old sea barge and all of them floating away. I just laughed so hard. I was like, what?
Yeah, I did feel like the Schrodinger field, I understand that it's like converting people to other versions of those people, like Klingons. Oh, it's a version of Klingons that I guess never got space travel, but they're still here. Like, it's a little weird to think that.
Yeah.
And then they go to the primordial ones, but it just felt like almost like that old episode of TNG where they're all de-evolving instead of like.
Well, they did devolve into the proto Klingons that Worf was. They literally referenced that episode.
Right. Yeah. So I guess my point is the Schrodinger field of like uncertainty or whatever feels like it should have been a little more random than just like, here's an older version of the thing. And they even make a joke about like how like, oh yeah, they maybe they are transforming, but they don't ever change their ships. They're always just these big birds of prey. So maybe we're just not noticing. Yeah. The whole thing was fun. And just like seeing the Cerritos, when it goes sovereign class, he's like, we're going all sovereign class. And she's like Freeman leans back in the chair and goes, I guess I'll take it. And like, and then it's a galaxy class for a second, and a number of others, just like quick succession changing ship types. Is so much fun. I love great
that one of them was a single nacelled ship, because that's a thing in the fandom where people are like, how can a fucking single nacelled ship fly in a warp bubble? And the fact that they almost explained it,
so funny,
hilarious.
We don't have time. We don't have time for that explanation, Lieutenant, or whatever. Just like, yes, you do.
So you kind of glossed over it, I feel, but you know the bit. The bit about the Klingons never really upgrade their technology. They always just make ships that look like big, stupid birds.
Yeah.
I feel like that's so hilarious to me, because it's not just because they're like, oh, clearly they don't want to like put the time and money into like figuring out what else the Klingon ship is going to look like for this episode, but because Star Trek on the whole has never really spent too much time or effort on the Klingon ships.
Yeah.
Like, you go back to Enterprise, they just look like fucking birds of prey.
Yeah.
And D7 class, or like, I think they called them like D4 class. And I'm like, it's just a smaller D7, you bastards. And then you go into Next Generation, and I'm like, they're literally flying the same shit they did Kirk's day.
Mm-hmm.
I just love it.
Well, it's interesting too, because if I'm not mistaken, they had space travel long before humans.
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of makes sense that they're, similarly technologically advanced as humans, but they've had space travel a lot longer because they iterate way less often. You know what I mean? They're just, they're a lot slower at their upgrades and iteration. And so they're just sort of staying where they are. And in that time, the Federation's done like 16 generations of ships, and they're still doing the same thing.
Well, all the Klingons ever upgraded their damn weapons.
Yeah. Oh, speaking of weapons upgrades, such a funny moment. Like, it's that classic Worf thing where Worf always wants to do the thing, but Shax really wants to go at it. And they get the Terran Empire ship for a second, and he's like, by the prophets, our weapons are amazing. And then the weapons down thing pops up immediately. He goes, oh, no.
Yep.
I loved it.
Yep.
I gotta say, I know we're not really going in any kind of order, so I don't know about jumping ahead. Best joke of the episode And like probably one of my favorite jokes in the whole series, not even joking. I freaking love Engage the Core. That is such a funny joke for the last joke of the show. It's so fucking good because it's
so good.
It's so good. Somebody had to have thought of that joke like 4 seasons ago, and then like seriously, like it's so Ransom. It is so perfectly Ransom and perfectly Star Trek. It is so perfect, and it's even a reference. Like we have talked about it on this show so many times about how stupid it is that now it's like a conscious thing that the captains have to have their catchphrase. So when they started doing that, and like the actual crew started going, no, it'll happen organically. Please don't. And then he said, engage the core. And I did not think I could like a joke that was based on that as much as I did. Like that joke is so good.
Yeah. And now I think I enjoyed their reaction to it more than the actual joke.
Yeah. Please don't make this our lives. Oh, it's so good.
One of them said, come on, you don't want to set that tone.
Yeah. He definitely
you are
does.
better than this.
He definitely does. Oh, I loved the line, a little birdie told me, blah, 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 blah. And they said, was it Miggly Mo? And he's like, yes.
Yeah. But, I was happy. Like, I felt like he earned that captaincy because, he was the one that
hid the Klingon.
Hid Mailer.
Yeah.
And because he's like, yep, you couldn't do it, so I did it.
Yeah.
Because it was the right thing to do.
You needed plausible deniability. It was the right thing to do. We had offered an asylum. Like, I was living up to... He was doing the thing of, like, fighting the powers that be for the sake of the Federation's actual ideals. Really, really great. And Ransom has... I still think he's, he's not the captain I would choose to be on his ship, but, like, he's a worthy captain.
Yeah, he's all right.
Yeah. They had 2 moments in this episode that I thought were really big hero moments and like straight out of anime. Like they gave this episode a little more money and they put it into a few of the shots. And one of them being, I'm forgetting her name, but the girl who's like a daughter of Zeus.
Yeah, Ollie
getting to like fire the Klingon ship from outside the ship. It's just so much fun, man. And it was such a like literal
Dragon
anime.
Ball Z.
Yeah, exactly. Like they did the camera movement and everything, and she fires like a lightning bolt at the other ship. It's so silly and like, it was fun.
Yeah, I loved that.
Yeah,
I loved it.
Me too. Other one was Science Besties, like them syncing up to do Science Besties.
Yeah,
while they're in the probability storm or whatever. Just so much fun because it's just like it was like every anime thing where like our 2 souls must combine to do one thing to fight perfectly, but it was them like pressing buttons and like it's so good.
Yeah, that was fun. I'm not gonna lie, Mariner's little speech at the end about how they're not the most professional and they're way more professional fleets and she's been kicked out of most of them, but they're a worthy crew and all that shit. Like that got me a little bit.
Me too,
touched this old chunk of coal.
Yeah, me too. Got
a little Misty. Play Misty for me.
No. Sorry. Oh, I thought you don't have my guitar right now. Yeah. It's a great episode. Really is. Great ending to a really fun series.
And yes, that was Lieutenant Junior Grade O'Connor falling out of the Transcendence portal away from the koala.
Oh,
at the end.
I see. I missed this. I don't even know what you're talking about.
Yeah, at the end, there's like, well, she's giving her speech, and we're seeing all the different people on the ship. She's talking about how the crew is great and does the things that they're supposed to do. Yeah, like there's like Ta'ana is like tending to a patient, and a fucking portal opens up in the ceiling, and the guy who transcended and was like, "The universe is on the back of a giant koala. Why is he smiling? What does it mean?" That guy falls out of the hole.
Oh man.
And he's all like covered in slime and like shaking in fear. Wow. And Ta'ana Taana like briefly looks over at him and just like rolls her eyes and goes back to her patient. It's like, so Lieutenant J.G. O'Connor is back on the ship after all these years, after 5 years.
Weird.
With his adventures with the koala.
That's weird and fun. All right. I guess they wanted to tie that up.
I mean,
what a weird reference.
I could have been okay with not having tied that up, but it was a funny bit.
Yeah, it's a funny bit. I thought the 4 Mark Twains was a funny bit.
That was fantastic. I liked that. I liked all the Mark Twain stuff.
Yeah, me too. It's been fun, and then like just the idea that the ship is so rife with Mark Twain. The need for the Mark Twain conversations. The 2 of them are hitting the deck at the same time. So funny. And then I really liked Badgie just like blinking into evil for a second, and like his crew, his fellow crew members going like, okay, he's fine. like they're just dealing with him on a daily basis, being like maybe evil at any moment.
Yeah,
it's good stuff.
At that point, like we saw Badgie for a second, and my wife went, "Oh yeah, we didn't have a Badgie or episode or a Peanut Hamper episode this season." And I was like, "I'm good with it." She's like, "Yeah, me too." We're both like, "Yeah, that feels good."
Yeah. Yeah, this season felt nice. I feel like it did a good job of wrapping up the things it needed to. It didn't touch on everything that I wanted to see, but like, I don't know. I liked it, and it got the characters in a good place, and there's lots of stuff left for future adventures.
Yeah, and they've all said that they want to come back in some capacity, and they might do movies or something. Who knows?
It's awesome.
We've got another Stu email. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, let's do it.
This one was called, I would have gone with the next generation personally. He says, finally, a Rutherford plot about having trouble opening doors. Yeah, that is what it was about, Stu. That's all it was about.
Yeah.
It wasn't any deeper than that.
Why was he? I don't even know what he was talking about. Having trouble opening doors?
He had trouble opening a door.
Okay.
So Stu is being reductive. Stu says this episode is feeling a bit overstuffed with characters to have the bandwidth to be a satisfying series finale. Who's that crewman you see briefly with an eye patch? How did that happen? And why isn't he just wearing a half visor? The S field should have turned Helga and her crew into Discovery Klingons at one point. They did!
Yeah.
No, I hate having extra nostrils. Okay, one of the Klingon ships got hit with that S field, and they absolutely turned into Discovery Klingons.
I thought some of them turned in. That may have happened too. I thought some of them turned into like 2009 Klingons.
I didn't see the 2009 Klingons. I saw
maybe
specifically.
Maybe it was Discovery Klingons.
It was the blue Discovery Klingons. Stu continues, with how they were tripping over themselves to tie in everyone else from this season, I'm surprised the Orions didn't get thrown in there too somewhere. Well, we had Tendi. Rutherford goes full organic. If only he had done that at the start of the season. It would have given him a plot line this year. It was even set up pretty well with him meeting his counterpart who embraced going cybernetic a little too much. Yeah, that could have been a good catalyst for him to start cyborging.
Yeah, like questioning the cyborg nature of himself or something like. Maybe we find out like it's been slowing him down with his relationship with Tendi. Like we do find out at the end that like he hasn't been as honest with his emotions because he's been like blocking his dopamine or whatever. And it's like, oh, well, that's a thing we could have known all this, or like we could have had it sprinkled in, and then we would have cared in this moment, but we didn't.
Quote, oh no, we're just friends. Ha, it's canon. Tendi said so. Yeah, Tendi was wrong though, Stu. Look at that scene again.
Tendi was real wrong.
Real wrong. T'Lyn even thought it was funny. In her own Vulcan way.
Yes. Silly humans.
Stu says Boimler learned the lesson of not needing to copy his alternate reality counterpart so much, but didn't shave the beard off. Dude, that beard was dope. Even Mariner was like, I love it. I hate how much I love it, or whatever. Like, it looks great. I hate it.
Well, and that's an interesting part. He didn't like we talked about it a lot earlier in the season, and I was like, surely they're going to do the whole he's just copying another person, so he needs to like be himself. That is not what they did, which I liked. Nope. I liked that it was a complete misdirection. They just found that that pad works really well. It's important to me, but my friendship is more important to me. I like that a lot. Mm-hmm. I did too. A really great misdirect.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And in a way, Boimler was trusting himself.
Sure. Absolutely.
I did like that.
Yeah.
Speaking of Boimler, why is his hair purple? Tell us. He dyes it. He dyes it. They already said it.
They also, remember there was a thing about like how Boimler supposed to have like some connection, or like they said it was not in the show. It was like an interview that Boimler was like, there was some connection to the universe in Boimler's heritage or something. You remember this?
No.
It was in it was in an early interview, like in season 1. We've talked about it on the show a few times because it was always like we've talked about like maybe the dyeing his hair might be a clue, like maybe he's someone from, I don't know. Anyway, apparently it was not something they ever followed up on.
Yeah, that's weird.
It was something in like early days of interviews about this show, like in the season 1 or 2. And so we were kind of like, it stuck in my brain because I was always looking for like, who are we going to find out that he's a descendant of or whatever.
Yeah.
I thought it might be like a thing they showed in the finale, but nope.
It may have just been them making a reference to him being a, what was he? Some sort of beet farmer or something?
Oh, well, yeah, there was that. That he like basically had this similar to the Picard thing,
yeah,
but with beets or whatever.
Something like that.
Could he be a shroot?
So anyway, Stu says, so yeah, that was a pretty good season finale, though kind of hampered by the unnecessary need to bring in other stuff from the season, which felt a little distracting from this being an ending. As a series finale, that ending was as good as they could do, I suppose, given the circumstances. So there was a bit of a crammed-in feeling at the end with the sudden transfer and rearranging of the crew structure and such. Good on them for not making Mariner captain, though, because that trope has been feeling a bit overdone of late, and it was more true to what the show is meant to be about. It does feel, regardless, that the show couldn't really keep going for much longer than this unless it was going to get into new characters replacing our originals. Plus, I feel there's been a growing element of sentimentality and characters stopping to make speeches about how important what they do is and the meaning they find in things. Yeah, that's Star Trek, dude. Thankfully, not at disco levels of crying all the time, but a little more than I'd like from an animated sitcom. So really, I guess there's just one thing left to say to wrap all this up. Fuck you, Meegly Mo. Take care and happy holidays. Yeah, happy holidays to you too, Stu. I will say this. Let me say this. I liked the fact that they made sure to bring in the lower deckers, the current, like, new people.
Yeah.
Because the fact that Boimler and Mariner are both being promoted to provisional first officer, and they're literally over the lower deckers. Like, to me, that's important. That's like, it's like fucking Scrubs, dude. Like, when you see, like, the new interns come in.
Yeah.
And, like, the old ones are now, doctors themselves, and they have to, be over them. And
yeah,
it's like the old churn, the old cycle. Like, that's part of the beauty of what it is to be a lower decker. You're not going to stay there forever. And that was one of the more important arcs of the entire show, is that these people need to figure out how to move on and move up.
Yeah.
And stop, languishing.
This all makes me think, like, what if we're talking about Lower Decks ending and it's over and sad and bummer and like, what's next? What are we going to do with these characters? What if they just like announced Middle Deckers?
Yeah.
Coming soon.
I mean,
and it's just like, yeah, we had to end Lower Deckers. Our characters graduated from that, but now they're in the middle.
Yeah.
It's funny.
I mean, they're straight up upper deckers now. They're on the bridge.
First officer.
They're like Tendi and what's her face, Talin are like the science officer of the ship, and Boimler and Mariner are like co-first officers. Like,
yeah.
They straight up bridge crew, yo.
Oh yeah, for sure. Which did Rutherford get any kind of promotion since
he got a promotion last year? Like there was a chunk of his.
Yeah, I remember that.
I think that's kind of why they laid off of him so much, because he got a lot last year.
Man, like, I don't know. I remember they all kind of got promotions last year and started getting better rooms and stuff. I remember all that, but I don't know. As for like plot lines, they gave Rutherford a few things over the years, but not a lot to do.
Well, I doubt that they were sitting around, weighing it evenly.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, I mean, I would have liked to have seen a little more Rutherford, and I absolutely wanted to see Rutherford and Tendi get together, and maybe we still will.
I think it's possible. Well, I hope we return to this world. I hope we return to the like specific characters here and all the stuff with the rift and everything. It just sounds like a cool thing to explore on Star Trek. I'm in.
Mm-hmm. I want to see it. I will watch it all.
Yeah, me too, man. Me too. All right. Well, I guess that wraps us up. Feeling good?
Yeah, I feel all right.
All right. Well, guys, we'll be back with more Star Trek Universe soon. We've got just a few weeks until the Section 31 movie drops.
Mm-hmm. And I'll start posting TOS reviews with Effie again.
Sweet.
So
so yeah, we got a lot coming up, and I guess Strange New Worlds will be sometime next year.
Mm-hmm.
It's gonna be a good year. Good Star Trek year. Well,
yeah.
Happy holidays, everybody. Merry Christmas. And Joel on True.
Live long and prosper.
Thank you for listening to the Star Trek Universe Podcast, a Stranded Panda production. If you'd like to hear more from David C. Robertson, check out the DC On Screen podcast or maladjusted.tv for his web videos. If you'd like to hear more from Matthew Carroll, check out the Marvel Cinematic Universe podcast or listen to his music. Just search for Matthew Carroll anywhere you get music.
This holiday, BMW has reunited 3 members of the family at the BMW Road Home Sales event. The Agile X3, engineered for any adventure. The plug-in hybrid X5, commanding the streets with unmatched presence. And the all-electric i4, charging into the future with impeccable performance. Hurry in to find what powers your journey at the BMW Road Home Sales event. BMW, the ultimate driving machine.
Visit Valley BMW Center today for attractive lease and finance offers.
Hey guys, it is Ryan. I'm not sure if you know this about me, but I'm a bit of a fun fanatic when I can. I like to work, but I like fun too. And now I can tell you about my favorite place to have fun. Chumba Casino. They have hundreds of social casino style games to choose from with new games released each week. You can play for free and each day brings a new chance to collect daily bonuses. So join me in the fun. Sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com.
Sponsored by Chumba Casino. No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
This holiday, BMW has reunited 3 members of the family at the BMW Road Home Sales event. The Agile X3, engineered for any adventure. The plug-in hybrid X5, commanding the streets with unmatched presence. And the all-electric i4, charging into the future with impeccable performance. Hurry in to find what powers your journey at the BMW Road Home Sales event. BMW, the ultimate driving machine.
Visit Valley BMW Center today for attractive lease and finance offers.
It is Ryan Seacrest here. Everybody needs some variety in life. That's what I love about Chumba Casino. They know how to keep things fresh and exciting. All their games are free to play. Like spin slots, bingo, and solitaire. You can claim free daily login bonuses too. And they release new games every week. So spice things up with ChumbaCasino.com now for your chance to redeem some serious prizes. Sponsored by Chumba Casino. No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus. Terms and conditions apply.